Hi, everybody. Thanks for listening. I'm Jenny. I'm a life coach. And today is a follow-up to my last video about how INFJs can heal. And so for this video, I wanted to talk more about parts work. And the concept that we're all multiple comes from this book called No Bad Parts. It's by Richard Schwartz, who is a PhD. And he is the one who kind of developed the internal family systems model. I think he talks about how he was working with people with eating disorders and how they kept telling him, there's just this part of me that has to do this. There's this part of me that has to do this. And so he kind of just approached that with some curiosity and started asking, can I talk to this part directly? And so that's where a lot of these ideas come from. So there's 3 different categories of parts, and I just want to introduce those to everyone. We'll get deeper into this in the course. But I thought it would be something that the bigger community would be interested in learning. So the first part I'm going to talk about. So again, this isn't like you have one inner child. This is just a category that you can have multiple inner children. You can have multiple fragments that fall into this category. So the exiles, which are also known as the inner children. And again, all these parts are usually, they develop as a symptom of trauma, and everyone has trauma. And so the level of fragmentation that you have, or the number of fragments that you have, is based on probably how much trauma that you've been through, but everyone has trauma. And so the inner children, the exiles, originally were happy, innocent, playful personality fragments. And then when they experience trauma, when you experience trauma, they become sensitive, wounded, and burdened. They are frozen in the past. They feel unloved. They're very emotional. They can be very debilitating. If your inner child gets triggered, you can just be stuck in bed for days. They feel abandoned. They're responsible for lots of overreactions. They have low self-esteem. And when you heal them, they allow you to start feeling a lot more joy, a lot more awe, a lot more love, and a lot more creativity. We can tend to isolate them to keep them from getting triggered. So that means you isolate yourself. The world, over time, as you accumulate wounds, the world just becomes more and more overwhelming, and you can just become more and more isolated because you're trying to just avoid all of the triggers. And it's also very important not to heal these parts first, because you have other parts that are trying to protect them, and you need their permission. You need their permission. They don't trust you because they've been doing all of the work for a long time, and so they don't trust you to just come in and start making changes. And so this is an example of where therapy can be very triggering, because sometimes a therapist will go to work with an exile without having permission from the other parts. And then that makes the other parts very angry. And then they can like kind of like attack you. So you can become very self-destructive. They can become rebellious, which looks like you becoming self-destructive. I know a lot of this sounds really out there, I don't want to scare anyone away from these ideas. This is proven, like this is a very valid model of therapy, and it's a very helpful model of therapy. And I know it's going to sound probably really weird compared to other types of therapy, but I read the comments and I know there's other people who experience this, and I'm hoping that it's going to give a name to something a lot of people experience and were confused by or had a lot of shame around. So I just want people to kind of get comfortable with this idea of fragments. The other types of fragments are your protectors. And within that group, there are managers and there are firefighters. Protectors try to keep us safe, try to protect our exiles from getting triggered, our inner children from getting triggered. And they do that by repressing or distracting us from our trauma. So how this type of therapy works is you work with your protectors to a point where they can relax, and then your exiles and your buried parts can start to surface. Sometimes you'll have old memories come back. Sometimes you'll have old interests that get rekindled. Like one example is I used to be really into fantasy in like middle school. And then I kind of grew out of that interest, but now I'm having a lot of fun, like using a little bit of fantasy imagery in my Instagram posts. And that happened when I started doing some of this work. So you might have old interests kind of resurface in new ways and things like that once you start to do this work. Protector fragments can be very overreactive. It can look like road rage. It can look like harassing people on the internet, making like very black and white accusations. It looks like being angry when you're actually sad, right? It's like the anger is a way to protect you from feeling the sadness. It can look like weaponizing trauma. It can look like all kinds of things. So between the managers and the firefighters, these are your two types of protectors, and they're often at war with each other. So managers' job is to keep you from getting triggered. So one of your protectors, one type of protector is a manager, and they're trying to prevent you from getting triggered. They try to control the outside world, not let too much unpredictability in. It can show up as a harsh inner critic because they're scared that if you take risks, you will get hurt. It can show up as hypervigilance. It can show up as sabotaging your own happiness. They want to keep you small because they think that's a way to keep you safe. They're very worried about doing everything right. They're very perfectionistic. And they're very tired and very stressed because they work very, very hard to do all of this. They're basically parentified children. So they're basically children who had to do their best to act like adults. And I think this is the fragment that shows up in INFJs most of the time. I really think that INFJs are stuck in management roles a lot of the time. We're the ones who are always trying to keep everything safe and manageable and organized and predictable. We're the ones who are always trying to take care of everyone else. And so I think INFJs are playing the manager a lot of the time. The other type of protector is a firefighter. And firefighters are more reactive. Firefighters, instead of preventing you from getting triggered, they're the ones who step in once you've already been triggered. And I really think that this fragment is the one that's driving narcissists most of the time. They're just constantly lying and constantly running from their guilt, constantly running from their shame, constantly running from their lies, using drugs and alcohol to like escape accountability, all of those things. So I think narcissists have very active firefighters. This can also kind of show up in like addictions. There are a lot of INFJs who at some point struggled with addiction. So for those phases, you might have had a more active firefighter if you're an INFJ, but yeah. So they're very self-destructive. They're very damaging. They're kind of like really immature babysitters. It's like you have your exile and you have your firefighter who is also a child babysitting like this screaming baby, and they have no idea what to do, and they're just like, here, like, eat all the candy, just stop crying. So they're very irresponsible. They're very self-destructive, but they're actually just misguided children. And you don't want to meet my firefighter fragment. Like, she will scorch the earth. So they can be very very aggressive, very angry, very mean, very nihilistic, I think is the word that I'm looking for. I think a lot of the things that happen in like the INFJ narcissist dynamic is narcissists will push you and push you and push you and push you until your firefighter gets triggered. And then so your firefighter is going to kind of fight fire with fire. They're going to play the same game. They're going to act like a narcissist. That's called reactive abuse. And then the narcissist uses that as like proof that you're the abusive one. Okay, but what's actually happening is they're pushing you and pushing you and pushing you until your firefighter gets activated. And your firefighter does not care about propriety or saving face. They will scorch the earth. Okay. So they treat triggers like emergencies. They fight fire with fire. This can lead to a lot of damage to the self and to relationships. Even like they even like see suicide as an acceptable response to like escape a trigger. They lose control. They like force you to lose control as a distraction from the original trigger. And they can also leave us really vulnerable to like types of bypassing, right? Like they're this babysitter and they're just like, I don't know what I'm doing. I need help. And so they'll try to kind of pass you off to anyone who seems like they know what they're doing. So this can leave us really vulnerable to like cults or like charlatans or like false religious leaders and things like that. And so those are all your parts. You've got the exiles, the wounded little inner children, and then you've got the protectors. And then among the protectors, you have the managers, who are the more responsible ones, but they can be really harsh. They can be really critical. And then you have the firefighters who are more nihilistic. And so you can get trapped in these wars between your manager and your firefighter, where you get triggered and then your firefighter like causes a lot of drama in your life, and then your manager gets really mad and then tries to exert control over the situation, and then your firefighter just rebels against the control. So it can cause a lot of problems. But what healing looks like, so beyond all those fragments, you also have your core self. And your core self is just you, like you in your natural state. And your core self has probably not been leading. And so healing looks like learning to lead and learning to treat all of these parts with love and curiosity and understanding, instead of just being frustrated with them. So that's all I have today. I need to save some information for the course. If you are waiting for access to the Facebook group, which I talked about in the last video, I'm going to send those invitations soon. Just be patient. And I'll have one more video coming out before the course is launched. So keep an eye out for that. Hopefully that'll be out soon. And in the meantime, send me any questions that you have. And I'll be back soon. Thanks, everybody.